What up, guys? It's Tom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be going over Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2, released in 2024, directed by Kelsey Mann, teenager Riley's mind headquarters is undergoing a sudden demolition to make room for something entirely unexpected. New emotions. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust, who've been running a successful operation by all accounts, aren't sure how to feel when anxiety shows up. Let's get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. I thought the plot of Inside Out 2 was really interesting, and I thought it was a great continuation from the first movie. Because with these new emotions that come with hitting puberty and with growing and getting older, it is cool to see these new emotions actually enter headquarters, and now they're trying to take control. Because when you hit puberty, those emotions are in more control than the ones you had previously. So I thought it was cool that they thought of that and added to this world that they created with the first movie that everyone loves so much, to add a little bit of hecticness to the plot. It was a refreshing change of pace. So I thought they did a great job with the plot, and it did exactly what it needed to do. The second essential aspect is attraction. So I was entertained for most of this movie. There are some parts that I was bothered with, but I'll get into those in a second. First, let's talk about how interesting this premise is, because I talked about it in the first movie, and it's awesome. I love the premise. I think it's a great way of expressing someone's mind and how it operates, with how the emotions control Riley, for example, and outside of headquarters, the rest of this world that's in her head. It's really cool to see how they portray those different things. Like in this one, there was the sarcasm, which was an actual canyon that was created, that if you yell across it, it changes to make your tone kind of sarcastic. That's really cool.
Hey, I bet you're the best crane crew in the world.
Wow, those guys are jerks.
And there was also the stream of consciousness, which wasn't shown in the first movie, which was also really cool. How it was whatever they're currently thinking about is floating in that stream. So they always do a great job with actually portraying these different things that occur in reality inside her mind. And obviously they showed more of the stuff that was in the first one, like the land of imagination, and how dreams work with the, I guess, DreamWorks, but that's a completely different production. How the dreams are like movies that the little bean dudes go and play for Riley while she's sleeping. So I thought, obviously, those are really cool and add to this interesting premise. But things I didn't like was, at one point in the movie, there was a character called Pouchy. And I hated him. I don't know why it bothered me so much, but I could not stand that he was in the movie at all. He did not need to be in it. I hated that he was such a vital part in the movie too. I'm not going to spoil it, but he was just such a vital part in this movie, and he didn't need to be. They could have chosen anything else to get to the end of this movie, and they chose him. I hated that. It really, really bothered me. And that might be some of the only reasons why it's below Inside Out for me. But, oh, God, Pouchy, I hate you. I really wish you weren't in this movie. But other than that, I really was enjoying watching this movie the entire time I was in the theater. The third essential aspect is theme. I think the theme of this movie was pretty obvious, even from the trailers, but especially during the actual movie. Everyone has the right to feel anxious throughout any point of their life. Anxiety is a really big part of a lot of people's lives. Some people are lucky enough not to have to experience it, but anxiety is real. It's not just part of the movie, it's in real life. And that's a big message to have, because a lot of people do have problems with it. So I thought that was great of them to actually show that as an emotion, and show that, yes, for some people it could be a little uncontrollable, but it's in everyone's minds. So I thought that was a great message, and I'm glad that they used it. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. I mean, as I said in the first movie review, these voice actors know how to portray the emotion that they're supposed to be just through their voice really, really well. I mean, if you listen to anger, you're like, okay, that's anger. And if you listen to joy, like, yeah, she's supposed to be cheerful, that's joy. You don't even have to be watching the movie and you'll know who's talking just because of how they're talking. even if it was different voice actors. As long as they have that tone and the way that they're expressing themselves in that emotional state, it works really well. And you can clearly tell which emotion is which. So that's something I always have to give them credit for, because that's hard to do, honestly. It's hard to play a whole movie as just using one emotion, always needing to keep that same tone and volume. So they did a great job with the dialogue, just like they did in the first movie. The fifth essential aspect is acting. So obviously, just like I said in dialogue, all these voice actors know how to portray their specific emotion really well. But I want to specifically talk about Kensington Tallman, who played Riley. And yeah, all the other voice actors had to specifically focus on one emotion, but she had to focus on all of them. I mean, throughout this movie, especially the over-exaggerated scenes where she was just hitting puberty and she really had to go all out on that one emotion, she did a great job. I mean, when she was angry, she sounded angry. When she was sad, she sounded like the world was falling apart. Like, she did a really good job portraying Riley through the hectic time that she was going through. So she did a phenomenal job. Definitely need to give her a shout out here. But yeah, overall, the acting was great. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. So this movie, just like the first one, is good at making the viewers feel emotional, because the whole point of the movie is emotions. So yes, in the first one, sadness was their biggest thing that they really got the crowd with. I mean, they got me with it. I even cried during that scene. But for this movie, with anxiety and embarrassment especially, I really did. I was just in the theater sometimes, just wanted to hide, and I didn't even want to watch because how embarrassing some of the scenes were. And I did kind of feel anxious during a lot of the anxiety scenes. So they did a great job in this movie, just like they did in the first. But honestly, that didn't surprise me. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So Inside Out 2 is an hour and 36 minutes. And I think that's awesome that they chose to keep it that short instead of pushing it to the 2-hour mark, because they wrapped up the story really well. They went from point to point to point with leaving no plot holes, and they didn't need to push the time. So I'm glad they knew that and kept it in that shorter length so that no one would really think it's getting dragged out. And the story was completed flawlessly. So, well, almost flawlessly. They did leave it on a cliffhanger a little bit, and that bothers me, but it's a movie, so I can't really say much about it. If they make an Inside Out 3, they better clear that up. Otherwise, I'll be kind of mad. But yes, I think it was paced really, really well. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. So I'm kind of mad that I didn't actually talk about this in Inside Out, because I did mention, just like in this movie, during the scenes where one emotion is really taken over, the music matches that emotion, which is really good. But the theme of Inside Out, the theme song that plays throughout a lot of the movie, especially the beginning and the end, it's so good. I love that theme. It fits the kind of joyful beginning of the movie and end really well. So I can't believe I didn't even mention that in the first movie, because it's been in the first movie. So I don't know if that just slipped my mind when I was reviewing the last one, but I had to mention it in this one. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So the director of this movie is Kelsey Mann, and it was her job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And I mean, obviously, hands down, she did. But what surprised me is that when I was doing my research, it said this is her first movie that she directed. Now, Mr. Majoritarian told me that that could be because Pixar kind of picks one of the animators and just throws them under the director slot. I don't know if that's actually how it works. He didn't really either. But if this is her first movie, I mean, hats off to her, because she did a great job. And for a first timer, that's impressive. So yeah, she definitely made a movie that's worth watching and definitely lived up to the first one. So that was a great job. And the 10th essential aspect is time. So it's hard to say if Inside Out 2 will stand the test of time, since it literally just came out. It's still in theaters as of the recording of this video. So I don't know, but I want to say it definitely will, because it's definitely on par with the first one, and it could surpass it. Who knows? I just know that I could not see it surpassing Inside Out, because I'm nostalgically attached to that movie, because I watched it as a kid, obviously, and now me rewatching it, I loved it. So plus I do think Inside Out is the slightly better movie compared to the two, but I still think obviously it's going to stand the test of time. It's part of, those two movies are going to be stuck together. If one does, the other one does. So of course they both will. And now, onto the reviews. So obviously Inside Out 2 did not disappoint, and the reviewers agreed with me. Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 90%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 96%, and IMDb gave it a 79%. So I agreed that Inside Out was going to be 90%, so I'm actually going to have to agree with the Rotten Tomatoes critics on this one, but I'm going to say it's going to be an 89% for me. Yeah, I can't put it right at the same thing that I put Inside Out on, so it'll have to be 1 point below it because it is basically on par. Some of the scenes that disappointed me in Inside Out 2 docked it a little bit, plus I can't put it above Inside Out. Like that one is just iconic to me. And finally, the rankings. Where will Inside Out 2 rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's find out, starting with 2024. It will rank first, and it's going to be above The Fall Guy. I think that Inside Out 2 is just obviously a much better movie than The Fall Guy, but I think it's much, much better done. I think The Fall Guy doesn't have too many problems, but it definitely has more problems than Inside Out 2 does. Plus, the fact that Inside Out 2 is a continuation of an already near perfect movie makes it really, really good. And The Fall Guy, it was a good movie. I definitely would rewatch it. I loved the movie, but I don't think it's even close to Inside Out 2, to be fair. I don't even think it's in the conversation. And that's why in 2020s, it's also going to be first and also going to be above Fall Guy, because basically all my 2020s have been in 2024 other than Beautiful Disaster. But I'm not going to talk about it because I just explained it in the 2024. And in all time, it's going to be fourth, underneath Megamind, and above X-Men First Class. Now, this one was harder for me. I was actually going to put it third, right above Megamind, but I had to really be nitpicky here. And basically how I described it to myself is, if Megamind is the bar, Inside Out 2 has some scenes that are above the bar and some scenes that are below the bar for me. So it evens out as very close to each other. And I was talking to Mr. Majoritarian, and he was like, look, if you had to get rid of one, which one would you get rid of? And I chose to get rid of Inside Out 2 simply because even if I got rid of it, I would still have the first Inside Out to watch. And Megamind, it's a solo movie. There is no continuation other than some kind of crappy TV series that I didn't even want to watch because I didn't want to ruin one of my favorite animated movies. But yeah, so I decided that Inside Out 2 I would rather get rid of than Megamind, so that's why I had to put it below it. And obviously, it does go above X-Men First Class. X-Men First Class is an amazing movie. I just think Inside Out 2, being the continuation of an even better movie, it's hard to beat. It really is hard to beat. The fact that I still have Days of Future Past above it, that's just because it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I could not put that lower than Megamind or Inside Out 2. So that's all I have for Inside Out 2. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. And make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace out.